Welcome to Built from Scratch. On this show, I interview entrepreneurs under 30 to hear about the stories of their initial success. My goal is to encourage the next generation of leaders to take action and make a difference. I'm Eric Libby. On today's episode, we have entrepreneur Andrew Roth with dcdx. Andrew is an Ohio native and the founder of dcdx, a branding agency he went all in on in 2020 when his senior year internship at Vanderbilt was canceled. In the 5 years since, he's helped build magnetic Gen Z focused brands for Spotify, Chipotle, Crocs, Eventbrite, and many other large companies. He made Forbes 30 under 30 at the end of 2024, was an Ad Age Gen Zers to watch in 2025, and was even featured in FastCompany's publication. We get to interview Andrew after his recent launch of his new startup, Offline, a platform that brings social media branding into real-world experiences. He's on a mission to make the future human. He's redefining how brands connect with the next generation. Andrew is just 26 years old. Andrew, welcome to the show.
That was probably the best intro I think I've ever had.
Not bad, right?
So
that was okay.
Maybe every time I walk in a room, I'll just bring you with
There
me.
we go. I'll put the audio. There you go. You just cue it up. Those 20 seconds. Perfect. So where we like to start, Andrew, is I think it's really important to highlight for entrepreneurs that maybe future entrepreneurs that are thinking about like, you know what, I have an interesting past, but like, am I an entrepreneur? What was I doing when I was younger? And so I'd love for you to start. What were you doing when you were a kid? Like if you can look back playing sports, video games, technology, what were the things that were important to you? What did that look like?
Hey, when I was growing up, I can't say I was super interested in entrepreneurship. I wasn't not. I mean, I was like every other kid probably watching Shark Tank and hanging, watching that stuff. But I was a soccer player, so I was super, I guess, sporty, played that growing up through high school. I don't think there was anything at the time that really told me I was going down this path. In high school, we had our philanthropic pursuits we needed to do. Every athlete did in school, and I realized that for us as soccer players, we were just checking boxes on that. And so thought about starting this charity on ways we could bring like the competitiveness of sports into the philanthropy world, and then Googled how to start a nonprofit. And like that Google search was like an interesting foray into entrepreneurship, even though it looked very different at the time. Ended up putting together this charity in high school, and kind of that was really what got me hooked.
What was a charity? What did the charity do?
It was called Champions for Charity. It's actually still going. So the high school kids are still up and running these days. But we did sports tournaments where every team played for a charity of their choice. Pay your entry fee, and the pot gets distributed to the winner, and the charity gets all the benefit from that. So it was just a way for like people to tie their their teams together.
Do you remember the genesis of it? Like when you were first, was it just out of like literally just like, gosh, there's nothing here and I want to do it? Or was there like some foundational moment you're like, okay, I don't like that, I want to make a change? Like what can you paint us back? What was that initial moment? If you could remember.
Wish it was that cool. I honestly think it was
just simply like, all right, let's do it. And like,
I was like, I literally Googled like, how does this even work? And then I just started following their steps. And I think later I realized I had like registered for a nonprofit.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. And then we got our first cease and desist a month later, and then quickly learned how to.
Then it was real.
Then it was real. Got the lawyers involved. I was like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Help me. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like touch on that for a second. There's another question I want to follow up with you, with like your parent side of things. But so for a month in, you get in and was it a nonprofit or was it a company?
There was like a shopping mall in New York that threatened. We were like literally 15-year-old children, and like they threatened us. We're like, you have to stop what you're doing. We're called Champions for Charity, and we were like, you're a shopping mall called Champions for. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we had to stay limited to Ohio for our operations, which is fine.
Wow. And you just realized like at 15 when that happened, 1 month in, you're like, okay, because that was probably the first conceptual idea of like, here's actual business. You're like, wow, this stuff like I have to be like conscious of like, there's other people in the game that are playing the same game.
It was real.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. I'd love another question on like childhood as to how you grew up. I've seen a couple LinkedIn posts from you, Andrew, and like there's one that you quoted Steve Jobs. It was the Think Differently campaign they had. And so I'm assuming like he was an inspiration, as for many entrepreneurs he is, but I'd love to know even closer to your personal life, family members, maybe uncle, aunt, or mom, dad, like, did you have entrepreneurs or sales focused people or product innovators in your close sphere?
I'll come back to Steve Jobs because I think it's interesting, but I didn't. My mom was a doctor. I learned very quickly I did not want to do that because blood and me don't go well.
Okay.
And I have some in me, but not when I see it outside of me. My dad is in commercial real estate, so I think I got like a little bit of his, creative, like sales pushy buzz from his work. In my immediate family, no, it wasn't like a growing up in the family biz and doing these things. It was like I kind of just did my thing. I thought I was going to be like in science for a while, and I did art a lot growing up too. So I was very creative in that way. So actually, coming to inspirations, I usually almost always quote Da Vinci instead of Steve Jobs. Because Da Vinci's a big big inspiration for a lot of the things that he did. I know for me, I was always very always curious. It didn't necessarily manifest early as an entrepreneur, so to speak. That's kind of how I grew up, was just I was just learning and sponging, I think. And I didn't feel like there was a right or wrong part of that. It just felt like how life should work. High school is kind of where that all changed and started to be a little more, entrepreneurially.
So completely different.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. So you talk about your parents not being you had commercial real estate and there was a little bit of sales there, but not too much. So you're not seeing a bunch of entrepreneurs in your life. And obviously that changes later on as you get deeply invested into this. But you mentioned a point with Steve Jobs. I'd love to go there for a second as to how it seemed like you had an interesting story there.
There are people we make icons in culture. One of the most influential, founders and leaders of all time, most creative geniuses. I didn't know who that was until I read his biography later on. I don't know. I just ended up obviously falling in love with the way he articulated a vision. And I think part of the reason I said wanted to come back to that is I think there are so many different entrepreneurs out there that tell probably a better story for a young founder. I think painting the way Steve Jobs is painted in modern culture is helpful for just the general narrative of entrepreneurship, but it's just one of those narratives. And there's again, I come back to Da Vinci was probably the greatest entrepreneur we've ever had. He just did it in so many different ways in different pursuits. Just
interesting. You're talking about biographies too. Are you Walter Isaacson? Is that the one you read for Steve Jobs? Yeah. Doesn't he have one on Da Vinci as well?
He also does.
Is that one pretty good? All right, I got to read that one. Yeah. I read the Jobs one, and that completely changed my perspective. Fell in love with Jobs, and now I'm going to move on. Love it.
But you got to start with the OGs,
Yeah, right on. So you go through, you start out kind of younger, not really any spark of interest in entrepreneurship. And then you get to high school, maybe a little bit, you got your nonprofit that you start. And so you see some idea of creating something.
Yeah.
But still, you're not maybe a little lemonade stand, nothing crazy. You don't really show I'm hustling since day one, I'm making money. And even you decide to go to Vanderbilt to study psychology/sociology. And I'd love to know what were you thinking? Because obviously it's way different than, maybe not completely different because you're studying the sense of psychology and brand.
Yeah.
But what did you think you were going to do with that?
Interesting, because I think Vanderbilt's closest business degree is probably what I studied, which is called Human and Organizational Development. So it had a little bit of org. For 98% of the people who do that, they have no idea what they want to do, and they just use that because it's
the easy one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think I made choices early on, not based on a business thing, but based on more life. I chose Vanderbilt because I wanted a balance of academics, of sports, culture, and of social life. And I thought the balance was a really important piece of that. And that's why I went there. I appreciate what Vanderbilt did. I don't think there was any piece of that in particular that led to a entrepreneurial growth or path for me either.
Sure. Sure.
So sorry, Vandy, but they know that. I've been working on that. Actually, it's funny. I've been working with the chancellor and a couple of folks over there on helping to build more of a culture around that. Sure. And there's a lot of another founder from Forbes 30 Under 30 this year was from Vandy. A quote I often refer to from growing up. I went to camp, and one of the things they talked about is knowing yourself before you seek to master others. And it's you got to learn all these things about yourself before you try and build this perfect thing. A company is so often a reflection of who you are, yourself, and culture. Crazy. All those things are you. You read the Steve Jobs thing. All Apple was just Steve Jobs' mind, on a piece of paper originally, right? But if you don't know yourself, then you're not going to be able to know how to run that company either.
So you go through these moments, and it sounds like it wasn't extremely helpful on the entrepreneurship side, but I'd love to know if someone maybe wants to start their own business and they're in that high school phase, or maybe a few years into college. I don't know. I don't know if I should. Does it make sense to continue? Should I consider doing that? If you could pull away the biggest pieces of Vandy that helped you, what would you say was the largest takeaway that's still with you today?
I think it was just doing it and trying it.
Knowing something you had to complete and knowing it was this accomplishment at the end of it almost, or
I guess from Vanderbilt in particular, or just in
Vanderbilt,
general?
Yeah, going to school, going to college, that investment of time, 4 years and money and all that.
Again, for me, school was not necessarily about school. It was about learning about almost all the other things that come next to that, of like how to build a social life, how to balance things. I literally like tried to get homework done just as fast as possible, or not do it just so I could do other things. The way I treated it, and the way I think people should treat it going in, is like college is a time where you have 4 years or however many years you go of basically like a bubble where you can't fail. Or basically like if you fail, you have just a net that will catch you every single time. Because if you fail, you go back to class the next day, and you go, and you get your degree and you go and get a job like everyone else does. And it's just like, there's literally no other time in your life where you'll have that freedom. It's a 4-year experimentation period is essentially how I think we should look at it.
That's crazy, because I completely, I feel like I relate to that in the sense that my business didn't get real until I graduated, and I was like, it's not like this comfortable side thing. Like now it's like I literally have to, like, this is my financial situation. It's not like, oh yeah, you're working on this cool business, but you're still going to school and stuff. That's crazy. I think that's a perfect segue, because for you, Andrew, in 2020, you were at a crossroads, right? So you got this thing set up. Like you think like got this career going. You're going to go into summer internship. I would assume you're probably thinking like, this is the next wave of my career. Like I'm doing all the right things. And then you get there, COVID happens, and it gets canceled. And so you are faced with a tough decision with a couple of weeks left to try and scramble and figure something out. Do I find another internship, or do I go hardcore on this business opportunity? So I'd love for you to share walk us through what was going through your mind, and what was that business idea that came to your mind?
As I started going through Vanderbilt, I did like start experimenting a little more entrepreneurship. I had like a dropshipping thing I did for a little bit, and then I started running an entrepreneurship club over there, and ended up having this startup that I was like obsessed. I was going to go to YC, and I was going to do all these things. I was, the classic thing. When COVID hit, I was actually in London studying abroad. The one thing that was consistent is that, it's funny actually, through high school, I always knew how to design websites. Not from scratch. I would use Squarespace, but 95% of people didn't know how to do that. So I would just do that. I started to like sell those services, and in college I had a couple clients just to pay for weekends and stuff. So when COVID hit, I still had that website thing going, and I had realized like it was actually helping people design websites that are more Gen Z friendly, and it was called Gen Z Designs. I knew something was going on with this website thing, and it had some legs, and I was like, I don't like the web design part actually, but I do like this Gen Z focus. And so, I'm sitting here with like locked in my room like everyone else is. The way I saw COVID from the very beginning was a period of forced growth. This time will like accelerate. It's like a complete incubation period and acceleration period for stuff. And if you, there's some interesting stuff on Isaac Newton too. Which you should check out. I remember whose biography it was. I don't think it was Walter Isaacson, but a lot of his major discoveries came from there was a plague going around. But that's when he was same thing. He was like locked in, and he got all these ideas and started to like build these things in these isolated periods. And so I just looked at this period and I was like, there's something that has to happen here. Like this is where growth will happen. If I just like waste time, I will regret this forever, because there's literally just nothing else to do. So I literally remember like sitting at my kitchen table, filing my incorporation thing, something around researching Gen Z, and no idea what it would be, and just got things started that summer.
Do you remember feeling at that time was it a nerve-wracking feeling? We're like, holy crap, I'm going to do this now. Like, what were you thinking? Because there's this part of, from what I understand, there's this part that you're like cutting off, right? You have two options in front of you, and you're like, I'm not going to do that thing, and I'm going on this thing. So there's like some level of, am I making the right call? I would have to imagine there was some level of that, but what, if you can remember, like, what were you feeling at that time?
I honestly think there's a huge part of entrepreneurship, which is ignorance. Like I probably should have been terrified, but I wasn't, because like I didn't know what I was getting into, as everyone else does when they're getting into their first stuff. It's so easy to go and register something.
Let's just start very small, and that's all.
Just see what happens. I don't know. Like literally there is nothing else. I will just throw a ball at a wall for the next however long until people say it's okay to go outside again. Like, I'll just do stuff while I was like, other people are probably bored too. And so I put out this like thing, I think it was on LinkedIn, and I ended up having 30 people like join my team for the first summer, where we did a collective total of $60 in revenue. So if you do the math, head count wise,
$2 per person.
And it wasn't even breaking out like that. So, but like that was, I remember that summer just being such a foundational piece of like what today is for me, because it just was the ultimate, also more experimentation like, let's try things, let's do things. We had a product team without products, and we had a marketing team without, service. Like, it was just, we were just doing stuff.
Wow.
Like,
so you go LLC, and then you have people joining your team. Like, what were those before you get to like 30 people joining? What were those first few steps? Like, you had a little experience working on the website stuff. You make a little bit of a pivot. What were those first? And I think it's important to highlight for somebody that wants to start. How did you know what those first few steps were to actually start making progress? I
think the one thing I did have is probably the only thing we had at the time, which was a vision. Honestly, it's been the one thing that's carried through to today in different ways. I hopefully have more than a vision today, but like having a really clear and simple articulation of a vision, even early on, was how we found people, how people became excited about what we're doing. Like, it was the one thing that I think like aligned everyone around a common cause, even if they didn't know what we were actually doing, which is almost everyone, including myself at the time. We want to build a world where like Gen Zers have a voice. Like, as a young person, who doesn't want to be a part of that?
Was that it from day one? That was the vision you set out?
It was. It's changed. I mean, it's changed a little bit since then. Not necessarily like, not that I disagree with that statement anymore. It's evolved into something what I would call a little more mature. But like, I think that was what we said from the beginning, was like, we want to give young people a voice and bring them to the table where they typically aren't not at the table.
So you just yeah, absolutely. Like, how can you disagree with that one?
Right. Yeah. And then they were like, okay, so what do we do? And I was like, good question. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So, that happens. You set the vision, and then you get these people involved. And like, what did that look like? Those first few conversations, getting people to join the cause.
We knew like, hey, we're going to help companies who don't understand Gen Z, because it was so clear at the time. It's particularly like at COVID, and you look at like the Black Lives Matter movement, it just was clearly like a cultural disconnect in where young people were and where like corporations were speaking. And so I think we had an idea of like what direction we wanted to go in. I had some like initial, again, foundations of kind of what I was hoping to accomplish around. We had like we did have a proprietary score. We called it the Gen Z score, which was like how we would rank brands on their Gen Z appeal. And I think that at the time was probably like the one thing we had out of the gate. The product team was like figuring out what that score was. Mm-hmm. The marketing team was figuring out how we get that score to
out to people. Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, didn't work at all. Yeah. But that was like the idea, is like, here's this vision. Here's how we execute on that. Let's see what we can do together. And I remember just having like phone calls with people, and they were like, I'm so excited to work on this. And I was like, I'm so glad you're in, like, let's do this.
You're doing it. Yeah.
They were like, what's our role? I don't know. Figure it out,
Yeah. So what was like, when you first started, was it just belief that they had in the vision that there was not really a comp structure? It's just like, all right, like, we're all doing this and like as a hobby, and then like gonna see what happens kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, it was such an opportune time to,
it was a hangout.
Yeah. It was a hangout. Now literally everyone was like, I am so like, half of it was basically like, at least give me, I don't care what it is, just give me something to do. I'm in my room, I'm stuck,
What a beautiful thing. So you go from that and then start build a little traction, get some people involved, and you say $60 was closed within the first, you said summer? Was it a summertime you did? That
summer, $60 for a summer.
And I'd love to know, how are you getting people to pay you for where's that transition happen when people are like, I'm giving you money for some of the stuff you're finding?
So we had this Gen Z score report where we would say, we're going to analyze your business and give you a score, and we're going to report back to you on what you did wrong, what you can improve on. Great idea. I actually remember, it's funny, I remember a conversation I had in London when I was there, and I'd gone to this talk, and this guy had like given this inspirational speech, and it was like, I actually had followed up with him when I told him I was building this thing for the summer, and I remember like listening to his advice, and it was like, your offering should be like a car mechanic. We're gonna like just do a little checkup on your business, right? And I took that, and he was like, make it as accessible as possible, $20. And I was like, okay, $20, great, let's do this.
So you start out with this metric scoring,
yeah.
And then I know what I read, Andrew, is your model ended up shifting more towards like a membership consulting type setup. Like, how did you go from? And I'm sure there's a lot of steps in between.
Yeah.
So feel free to share what those were, but you go from that to like a membership, obviously raising prices significantly. Like, how did you go from one to the next?
That summer thing was going into fall of my senior year. At the end of that summer, we had started having some conversations with some interesting, a little higher level, with some advertising agencies where they found some interest in what we were doing. I think, again, Gen Z was a really, really hot topic at the time. And it gave me enough confidence to say, I think we had started to land like some, $1,000, kind of start upping this just for like being experts on Gen Z. And I decided I was going to take that fall off from school just to like, again, COVID education was terrible.
Nothing.
Nothing. So I was like, I'm going to give myself some time to just work on this, literally 3-4 months, see what happens. If nothing happens, I'll stop and wrap up, get my degree, carry on like everyone else does. And in December of 2020, which was like end of that time period where I was wrapping up my semester off, having a couple more conversations with those advertising agencies, we had started to land, 10, 15K total revenue. And we'd put some reports out there just in trying to get our voice out. I think I remember publishing a top 25 Gen Z brand. It was like the first report we put out based on that score we talked about, right? And published it on Twitter to like our 4 followers. And a week later, it was like December, and I got this DM on Twitter from the VP of marketing at Chipotle. And she was like, I saw that report, saw Chipotle was up at the top, would love to chat about a project. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, first, this can't be real, number one, and second, like it.
Well, you checked it. I remember you telling me, like, you checked it. Like, okay, no, this is like the person. Like, this is actually legit. Like,
yeah. So I think at that point it was like, okay, we have something here. We did that project. That was like our first, and you always need that first big believer to really give you that boost of confidence. And for me, that was Tressie, who's now running global brand over at Starbucks. But she took that leap of faith more than anything. Was
they believed, someone believes, and I love to know, because that's a huge highlight. It's almost like this sense of like initial product market fit, or like that person that did take that jump on you. What do you think you did for that report that really stood out? Because like anybody could have seen that, anybody could have looked at it, but like is that something you spent 100 hours working on? You're like going to craft it perfectly. Was it the hook of it? Like, what do you think actually attracted someone with your like, how does that person really find that? So
I talk about this a lot, because I think there's 2 lessons from that. One is that no one will find you if you don't put anything out there. We were never going to land that deal. We'd never publish it. We had 4 followers, but like somewhere in the algorithm hit something, like someone must have liked it somewhere and it popped in front of her. It's like some of those things are just random, and that was super random, but like the chances are 0 if you don't do it. Number 2 is that our methodology at the time for like how we scored a brand was absolutely terrible. I think we literally like very subjectively looked at an Instagram account and said like, this looks pretty good. We're going to give it an 8 out of 10, right? Just not not
what it is today, right?
Not what it is today at all. Yeah. Why I think she reached out, and I'd love to ask her this question, which I should, is like, it was different, and it didn't follow groupthink at the time on like what Gen Z was. I mean, I've always believed in like, again, psychology driven for how I think about things, and I think like rankings are just that everyone loves a ranking. Like what, and then in school, it's like you get a report card and it's like a B plus, and you're like, well, clearly, I don't even know what it's about, but I clearly didn't get an A. So there's something missing, right? So it's like, if I give someone an 85 out of 100, you don't even have to tell you what it's about, but you're like, well, why didn't I get a 95 or 100? And so I think it's like playing with some of those principles where it's like tapping into that curiosity that all of us inherently have, where it's like, well, I'm running Chipotle's marketing. Clearly, I don't know something that you know. What is it?
That's crazy. And so you would have been 20, you were 22 at the time when this happened?
I was
21.
Yeah, I was one of the 2. Yeah.
Okay, so this happens, and you get this big customer, and now how does momentum change? So you have this conversation, and assuming it goes well, as you guys were doing stuff for Chipotle, so then you kind of leads to a few other bigger opportunities. What is that bridge from Chipotle now to those next other brand conversations?
Yeah, I mean, it's the confidence that is everything there, and obviously the name, and that's what they now I would have charged 10x what I charged back then, but they gave us the validity of using their name. So yeah, I think we went to like Denny's was our next big customer, which is like, makes sense, right? Denny's wants to be next to Chipotle. Chipotle was hot at the time, and Denny's was like a grandma brand, and nothing much has changed on their end. But we shopped at them. We're like, hey, we have this report. We work with Chipotle on this actually, and they're number 2 or whatever it was. Like, we'd love to work with you, and got our next believer there. So yeah, I think we started to take things around there. I in retrospect would do a lot of things differently, but I think like that was how we thought about things. Was like, let's kind of use this as a way to like get in front of relevant and similar people.
So I think that's huge, is like if you get that one big opportunity, you can almost leverage that against any other opportunities. Like, okay, well, we've done, the company that we've helped is bigger than your company, or just like very successful by default. Like, we should be able to like crush it with yours. I don't know if you've seen any strategies or have any suggestions where someone maybe is building up and maybe they could be a couple years in, they're trying to get that first big customer. Like, how would you suggest someone target Fortune 500 company or someone target a larger enterprise, it's like, God, or that just, we'll say golden goose they're going after. How does one get in front of them? And maybe it's different by industry, but what have you seen?
Again, I think there were like two strengths early on that we had that others didn't. I mean, one was like we were the audience we were talking about, which in almost all circumstances differentiated us from the crowd. Like Gen Z was starting to be talked about. All these agencies were talking about how they knew Gen Z, and they were run by, millennials and up. And so we were one of the first, not the first, but one of the first Gen Z agencies out there from the beginning that was like, we are Gen Z, we know this generation. But I think what differentiated us then from that case is like, we did not say stuff about Gen Z just because, like, I think for me, it's always been the loudest voices on Gen Z are not necessarily always the most accurate. Like there are this generation is made up of so many people that literally just like passively scroll and listen. And we always worship creators and influencers, but like the power in those creators and influencers is only there because of the people that follow and scroll on them. And so like that was kind of, I guess, more of a metaphor for my approach for understanding Gen Z, but it's like there are two forces at play and they're always acting a push and pull with each other. And if we only look at the push, we'll never get the pull. And so I think it's like that framework that we took for understanding Gen Z through a different lens that really helped to differentiate us. And that's why, to kind of answer your question more directly, it's like you need to stay strong in like what you stand for and what you believe, because I think we could have easily said like Gen Z values authenticity, Gen Z loves, like it fall into the tropes that everyone else fell into. But we were like, no, we believe in this and we believe this is how we should understand this generation, and we're going to follow those principles. So I think that's like one general thing. And then the other thing that I think helped was like design. I know this sounds crazy, but like you have to have a good look. Like if you don't look professional,
so no one's going to take you up and coming. Yeah.
Not at all. It's like you can't, and I don't care. Like if I were to spend money, it's like, it's probably worth it to get a good looking website or logo or something. Because if it looks like trash, no one's going to take you seriously. Doesn't matter what you have.
It's a lipstick. It's a front end. It's like people buy the marketing side. So kind of on that point, Andrew, when you're thinking about staying true to your brand, and I mean, speaking from the Gen Z perspective, your whole team is, I would assume, probably Gen Z and younger. And so that is appealing for these other brands. Yeah. I'm just curious you start out in hiring, I'm assuming probably buddies and just people that like want to get involved, but like, how does that change as you start to get a little bit more notoriety? You're starting to work for these brands. Walk us through that pivot from these are just buddies and anybody on board to like, okay, we got to craft an actual team now if we want to scale.
Money changes everything. And when those dollars start to come in, like I think it put me in a different mindset where it wasn't like what's the easiest or most convenient like way to do things. It's like what's the best. All of my working experience has been virtual for the most part. Like I looked at the world and was like, how do I get the single best like talent anywhere that's available? Not closest to me. Because I wasn't even, again, we were like at home. It was like not hiring my sister for this job. So again, like defaulting to me to what was the simplest answer is like, I'm going to put something out on LinkedIn. Consistently, we get 600 to 1,000 like applicants on things we're putting out there, which is crazy. And it kind of sucks to go through those things, but it's also like quantity will drive quality there, I think. And like, obviously now we've started to implement other things like referrals and have a bench that we, hit up for different projects. But at the time it was like, I'm going to find the best person that's possible for this. And we did, I think. And she helped to kill the first couple of projects we had together. And now I remember, and even our director of strategy right now, Mara, was a LinkedIn hire that I would do anything to protect and like keep forever. And I was, when I met her, I was like, how did no one find you? Like, how are you there? We put a vision out, right? And we articulated it well and simply and cleanly, and said, we believe in this and we want people who believe in the same thing. Will you come do that? And they were like, yeah.
Wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. When did you get to the point where these buddies from college were no longer, I mean, you said money coming in, but was there a clear moment you were like, almost it was kind of built up like, I got to make a decision. I got to get these people out and new people in. Like what did that, if you remember, what did that look like?
Yeah, it's funny because those 30 people that we had that summer, like they slowly phased out to like 6. And that's when we got the Chipotle stuff. And then when the real money came in, I was like, all right, we got to kind of phase those out and phase in the people we really want to like get on this. And basically when Denny was like the first project we actually hired a full-time person for. And at that point, like it was basically just the two of us. We had like another couple other like part-time people. It was basically just the two of us that serviced that and kind of built from that like core strong foundation.
One of the things that I want to touch on for anybody listening is, as a leader of a company, you have to make very difficult decisions with personnel and putting people in the right seats. Not everyone's going to be happy. It comes down to us as the leader to put the best person that's qualified in the right seat and not there just to spare feelings and like you said, just convenient and for the temporary, but not for the long term. I'd love to know, Andrew, like, is there a story you have of just maybe a difficult situation you had with one of your employees at one point, like a tough decision you had to make or a conversation you had to have, something you had to address? I know I've talked about on my podcast, I've had 6, 7 probably that I've had to go through, and it's been awful, but anything that you can pull from the 5 years in business?
Hiring is the most important and the hardest thing to do always. You almost always get things wrong. It's so difficult. I got to experience one downfall that early on in that charity is I started that with a close friend of mine. I don't like working with friends. Partly because of that. It's just like it creates there's like different incentives at play, and I'm a very people first person, and so like I like to differentiate and keep them separate, right? And so I knew after that I wouldn't do friends anymore. Like that was just something that was really clear. Some of these things you just learn through mistakes, and I know sometimes you listen to things like this to try and avoid some of those, but sometimes they're the only things that you can do to like really know that. Like you can read your Steve Jobs book and do these things, but like some of the mistakes that he made, you're gonna make.
Do you feel like when those moments when you hire that wrong person, have you seen from these hires, is there a time pretty early on where you see it and you're like, well, let's just kind of wait it out and see if they get better, and then it kind of was like, okay, finally, there's it's undeniable now we like need to do it? Like, can you see that, or have you seen that early and then it just kind of compounds? Or when is that moment where because obviously you hire them because you were like, this is the person. Yeah. When do you see that?
I think a lot of people have really strong intuitions and guts that gets them to where they are today, especially like founders, right? And I think one of the troubling things in hiring is like your gut and intuition is up against like your heartstrings, and sometimes those things are different. I think so often when you're in the hiring process, you want to believe so badly that the person is right. Like you just like, it's like they're good. I believe it. Like I feel it. They're good. But like something in the back of you is like, are they right?
It's like emotional versus logical.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like knowing how to pull which one is which there, and like how to differentiate and what to listen to is so hard. I think that's probably the mistake that happens most often, is like following one when you should be following the other.
Right on. Following more the emotional side than like, let's be logical. And like, what would you say for just as a high level, when you're hiring, what skill set are you most looking for? Is it the passion into the idea? Is it the technical skill set? Like what have you found has resulted in the best possible hires that you've brought on?
I think it's different depending on the role and like what company. I mean, now doing things again with offline, it's been very different, but I think like we just made, alongside Mara, what I would call like the best hire we've ever made. We needed to fulfill some projects we had coming in. And so I kind of was like debating 2 different types of roles we put out. We ended up just going out with something. I just think like when you put stuff out there, the universe brings it back. And like someone emailed me that had been following what we were doing for years, that I knew like we had been doing other stuff in the Gen Z world. It just like the perfect fit just materialized. Super proactive, super curious, like thinking about things in the same vein, understanding like what are the 5 things on the list and what actually impacts all of those, and how do we find someone who can think about that so that they know which things on the list to do instead of having me tell them that. And so it's like just that type of person.
So almost being able, like, kind of concisely saying, like, almost someone that can think those steps ahead, the future, seeing able, like, looking and strategizing. It's not just like, what's the task right here? It's not the tunnel vision. It's like what's impacting outside, and looking for those people that think a little bit bigger almost.
Yeah. And again, I think that's something specific for like the type of role that was really needed right now. I think there's certainly roles where like that is really important, where you can just look something straight in the eyes and just go for it.
Those people are fun to work with. Like when they get it, and it's just like, okay, like you don't have to explain everything. You got it. Go. All right, go ahead and like take care of it. You got it.
Especially early on. I mean, I'm sure you know, like early on as a founder, it's so hard to give control out, and like trust is so hard to earn because it's your baby and your company. And then like someone comes along and they can just like, they can see those things and relate, and you're just like, you can take that.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. As we get to the end of 2024, one of the big things I want to highlight was your huge don't know if you call it award or recognition on being on Forbes 30 for 30. And I think it'd be a dumb question to ask, like, oh, did you think you would ever do that? Right. Because like, no way you knew that at the beginning. But like when you got like, say 2-3 years into the business and you're thinking like, okay, like we're getting some of these brand deals with like Chipotle and Denny's. And it's like, did you kind of have that on your radar? Like, okay, we're pushing. We're going to see if we can do this. That'd be crazy.
I think it's been on my radar. Like I applied prior to this year once. It's hard because you seek the external validation of things like that to like give you confidence, but at the same time, like materially didn't change much. It just gave me more confidence in what I'm doing. It's not like I'm billionaire right now. It's like nothing's really changed. It was in my horizon in sight.
You're like, I'm going after this guy. Yeah.
But it's a step, right? It's like now what? Right now, what's next, right?
So what do you have to do to go and get that? You have to apply, you go through a process, an interview. Like how does one even get on Forbes 30 for 30?
You don't have to pay, which is contrary to popular belief.
Okay. All right.
No, you can either apply, you can get nominated, and then there's like a really thorough application process that you go through, unless you're super famous and they just name you and put you on the list without your consent. And then
then there you go. So I'd love the last thing on the business side and dive into a few personal things on what you've learned, but you've gone 5 years in this business, Andrew, and now you're making a little bit of transition to this business called Offline. And how you've described it to me is this very exciting opportunity for what is ahead as to how brands are going to interact with their potential customers. And I'd love to know why your hypothesis, why you're seeing this as this next wave, and what skills are you bringing from business one to do what you did in business one in maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever, a year at a time into this new business?
dcdx, one thing we've been doing for the duration of our existence there has been obviously researching Gen Z, but doing it through a lens of like digital well-being. So every year we've done a screen time report every year for 5 years where we've been tracking Gen Z screen time. We have a series on what we call from digital natives to digital captives, which is all about how young people's relationship with technology is changing. Obviously, you could probably see which side of the coin we're on with that argument. And that has kind of all been in light of this mission of what we say to make the future human, which I think you articulated in the intro. My whole like reason for being has been around like building a more human future, and one where we're designing and building for people and not for profit. Profit can be an outcome for sure, but like with people first. And I think that has come into most light when we looked at like, again, studying screen time. It's like we are a species that is like up against like platforms that are competing and monetizing our attention. And like we will never, ever, ever win these battles because people engineering things to like make us addicted, right? And my whole thesis from working with dcdx the whole time has been we need to create a change in the incentive structure. If we can change the incentives on why people advertise on platforms, we can get people to move off platforms to where they're incentivized to do other things. The natural question is like, well, what other thing could you incentivize to do that? It's just been like in the back of my mind for a long time. But as we started to research, we did some research with Eventbrite, and we were studying like the rise of these communities, the run clubs, dinner parties, game nights, all these different things that have popped up in the last 12, 24 months. And we started to realize that like there's actually all of these communities that are run by different community builders like have no way to monetize because they're disconnected. You can monetize through a one-to-one sponsorship if Hoka reaches out to you in your run club, great. But for a lot of these brands to invest in this and to actually open this channel up, there needs to be a connected infrastructure. And so we looked at this and we're like, this is it. Like if we can create a way to connect all of these different communities, we can actually shift from an attention economy to a connection economy, where we can create an economy around connection, which like, yes, can have some bad outcomes from like, we don't want to monetize everything, but like also miles better than monetizing attention, right? And so we started to look at this problem from, I guess, a systems level change of like, how do we do that? And sorry, I know this is kind of like a long-winded way of answering your question, but like that's how things got started. That the shift we saw that we've been seeing for years, that we saw materialize recently, and that we wanted to capitalize on. I'm taking every lesson. Like I think I'm taking every lesson. It's a different business. It's not a service one. It's a tech and talent, and we're taking a little bit of a different approach, which is a whole new wave of learning. But I think it's like it's also knowing how to learn now, which is better. Like I think that's the biggest change is like you can learn through failure, but there's also ways to like expedite the learning process that you can set up from the start. And I think that's some of the lessons we're taking in is like, it's actually so good to fail fast and fail early because you know which path to go down. So how do you actually like, where, I mean, looking at the fundraising process, like how do you actually set that up so that you can test these different channels where you're going to learn different things that'll help you figure out the direction, but we don't know what that direction is now. We know generally where we're going, but not exactly how to fulfill that.
That's crazy.
It's just like you have a full new wave of confidence going into this because you're like, I know that I'm going to fuck up. Like, I know it's not going to go well, but I know after that, I'll know what to do.
So it's been 2 months, right? It started just recently.
Just
very new
months.
Project. I'm excited to come back, Andrew. We'll play this back in a year at a time, 2 years at a time. We'll have you back. We'll talk. That'll be the next business. We're talking about dcdx, and that'll be the next one. On more of a personal side, and just kind of the relatability element of you as a founder, what do you think up to this point has been the hardest thing that you've had to go through in these 5 years? When
things are going well, it's really easy to celebrate and really easy to like feel good about that. I think it's important, why they're going well, because then when things like don't go well, if you don't have control or at least an understanding of why that's happening, like you just spiral. The research world hit a really bad like patch in the last 18, 24 months. Name your reason, economy, AI, a lot of different factors that are involved in that. I mean, the whole advertising agency business is like, I think on the brink of like a major change right now. And I think we just had been riding this high of like research. Everyone wants Gen Z research, and then all of a sudden it just dries up like instantaneously. And we're like, we've been doing the same thing. Like nothing's changed. Nothing that we're doing has changed. Like now we have to why? And like, how is this happening? And we just had no answers. And so I think like for me personally, it's like, was I lucky this whole time? Like was everything just happening because I happened to be in the right place in the right time? Or am I actually good at this? And it's like, I think you just start to get in this thing, and it's like, well, confidence is one of the most important things you can have in a good way, but you're not confident and you start to doubt yourself. And then you're running these pitch meetings that become more valuable because you're not having them as often. And you're like, people can feel that. And so it just starts to build on itself, and you end up in a pretty bad spot. That's the stuff people warn you about, when you're getting into this. It's like, you're going to have the peaks and valleys, but sometimes you don't know how low the valleys will go.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so you kind of set it up perfectly, because I like to ask high and lows. Like, what are you doing highs? So it's understanding when you're at a high, don't just sit there and be in jubilee, like figure it out. Okay. Why is this successful? What are the things that you've done, Andrew, when you go through those lower moments and you're not really sure? Is there anything even just simple? Like, I just start going on walks. I start writing, I start journaling. I start talking to more people. I look at the data. Like, what does that look like?
I mean, to me, that comes back to this whole, like, I feel like a narrative of this whole story which is like, it's not all about business. It's a big part of your life, and I think it should be, but like you have to have the balance in there. It's like, that's when your friends come in place, right? That's when your family comes in. That's when the people you love come into place. And it's like, if you can't lean on those people at those times, you're not going to lean on yourself. And then you're in a hole. And I think people are like scared to admit that in like entrepreneurship, and it's like grind and you'll make it. It's like, no, like you can lean as much as you need to.
You're going to fall on your face a couple times.
Yeah.
More than just a couple times.
Yeah.
If you were to give yourself just 30 seconds of advice to that person in 2020, and you were like, going to shake yourself, Andrew, I need you to know this, man. Like, this is my one shot to tell you this before you spend 5 years working on it. Not saying that you change anything, but what was that thing that piece of wisdom that you would pass on?
Trust your gut. Like, so many decisions I've probably waited years to make, knowing that they were the ones that I should have made 3 years ago. Like, I had the thought and I was like, this sounds like a great idea. And then never done it because I didn't have the confidence in it.
Just got to run. Just go. When you feel it, go.
Yeah.
We're going to finish this episode as we finish every episode on Built from Scratch. And it's with the quote that means the most to you. So the audience, you heard one of his favorite guys earlier that he was talking about. His quote was, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." I'd love for you to tell us what that quote means to you, Andrew, and how the next generation, maybe it's Gen Z, can take this as a means to be an inspiration, go out and make a big change in the world we live in today.
Love the way you end these. There is so much information out there, and it's only adding and accelerating, and AI is going to even disrupt all of that. I just think like the simplest things are the most powerful. Like the simpler you can convey a message, the easier and more quickly people will be able to see that and believe in it. And that's been I've been telling you, like, that's the whole thing. Find your vision, articulate it cleanly, simply, and powerfully. And it's like, that alone can get you far, really, really far. I think we just get caught up in a world of like trying to make everything feel complex. And it's like, no, the simplest things it's like, what's the paradox? Simplest answer is usually the best. It's almost always been true. and I've never found a reason in case where it's not. And so I don't know. I know it's not as eloquent, but it's like I just always come back to that. And I think the quote itself is simple, and it speaks to the power of what it says.
Everybody, that's Andrew with dcdx and Offline. Andrew, where can the audience go and maybe join a meetup for Offline or get involved with dcdx?
Yeah, well, meetups are everywhere. But no, I mean, follow us on dcdx.co is our website, and offlinetalent.com.
He's got his email on LinkedIn if you want to email him.
There you go. It's on LinkedIn.
Andrew, thanks for the time today.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.